Hi everyone, welcome back to another of my project analysis video, and this time it is going to be on Vela Bay. Okay, so in this video, I will be touching on a few things. So the project snapshots, whether this is a good first mover advantage, the standardized PSF comparison as usual, and whether the developer bought the land for too expensive, and 5 reasons not to buy, 5 reasons to buy, and lastly the floor plan comparisons. So let's just dive right into it. If you find this useful, do help to share and subscribe. And if you need to speak to someone to assess if this might be a suitable purchase into your property portfolio, do feel free to reach out to me. So Vela Bay is by Singhai, which is the same developer behind the recent Grand Diamond. It is sitting on a good, decent size of land and is coming in at 515 residential units with 2 basement car parks. So the important thing here is the number of car park lot provisions, which is 50%. And this is because Vela Bay is in the Bayshore district where the government is trying to drive the car light initiative. Okay, so Vela Bay is actually located very near the East Coast Park. Okay, and it is just a little bit to the right side of the East Coast Lagoon Village. So that is the hawker center that we see, that we all know at East Coast Park itself. So Bayshore is on the Thomson-East coastline, and that is a very convenient line that actually brings us very quickly to town, to Orchard area, and even up to Woodlands. So that would be where you can have easy access to Malaysia in future when the RTX is ready. And it is just going to be 3 stops away from Changi Terminal 5, which is also going to be the interchange for the Cross Island line that can bring us even to Punggol Digital District. So this is how the new Bayshore precinct will be looking like in years to come. So we can see that there is healthcare and medical. There is going to be the SAFRA that will be moving from Tampines to Bayshore, and we have future educational plots here as well, and the future integrated transport hub that will be coming up right at Bedok South MRT, which is also on the Thomson-East coastline. So if you look at this artist impression of how the entire district is going to look like, we can also see that there are lots of parks. Okay, of course we have the East Coast Park, and there's also the few other linear park and the central park that will be built within this Bayshore. So what we can see is that really the government is really preparing this whole Bayshore area for a new township to enter and live in it. Okay, so whether or not this is a first mover advantage, I mean, yes, this is the first private housing that is being launched in this Bayshore area. We're looking at the government injecting 10,000 new homes, out of which 3,000 will be private and 7,000 will be public housing. And for the first 2 BTOs that have going to be launched, this is under the Plus model, which means 10 years MOP for them. But if we look at it from a more macro perspective, right, along like, the Marine Parade area, then it's not really a first mover advantage already because there is a good supply of condos in the District 15 area, although they are older. And the next plot of land that will be coming up in Bayshore will actually be right beside Bedok South MRT. Okay, although Vela Bay is going to definitely be the one that is closest to the Marine Parade area. Some articles actually say that Vela Bay is actually the best because it's doorstep to the MRT, but the next plot is also going to be right next to the MRT, which is Bedok South, and it is also going to be a mixed development. So I think end of the day is really seeing what you like, what you prefer, whether it is the proximity to East Coast Park, having a sea view, or the importance for you is really to have amenities being right downstairs to a shopping mall. So the next upcoming land at the Bedok South MRT is actually open for tender already. So we wouldn't know what will the price be like, but definitely not going to be cheaper than Vela Bay for sure. And the commercial space we are looking at is 22,500 square meters. And to put it in perspective, it is bigger than Sengkang Grand Mall and Hillian Mall, but slightly smaller than the Woodley Mall. Yeah, so that is just to give you a gauge of how big this mall is gonna be. So I mean, if you're looking to enter Vela Bay, this is also just one MRT stop, or even I think it's just walkable to your nearby mall. Okay, so if you do a standardized PSF comparison between what are the nearby resale, okay, the closest that we can look at would be to Seaside Residences because that is the closest in terms of age. And then we will also look at our direct neighbor, which is at Costa del Sol. I put in here Bayshore and the Bayshore Park just for an extra comparison, but because they are way older as well. So floor plans wise, it's also going to differ by quite a bit. And if we are looking at Vela Bay to average 2,800 up to 3,000 for some of the perhaps higher floor units or those with sea view units, then let's look at whether this is a reasonable ask by the developer. Okay, so what we have done here, so similar to my previous video where we have done the gross up of the land tenure back to 2025 as a new launch, and also doing the harmonization of 7%. Okay, in this case, for Vela Bay, what I've done is to add a modest 5% for a project to be near the MRT. Okay, so what we are looking at using 6 months average PSF as the base, we are seeing that actually seaside residences and Costa del Sol are also hitting 3,000 for an apple-to-apple comparison. Okay, again, the Bayshore and Bayshore Park will fall below this 3,000 range because it's a different era of products already. Now we are looking at what are the views from the different directions of Vela Bay itself, because what the developer has done here is to do the blocks angled in a V shape just so that they can maximize the number of units that can have sea facing. So this is a pretty good perspective from each view, how it will look like. Beside us will be Costa del Sol, and beside that will be Bayshore. So those projects are up to 30 story. So FYI, for Vela Bay, we are up to the 31st story. For the west facing, that is your Costa del Sol and the Bayshore. The good thing is that we don't have any stacks in Vela Bay that is west facing. If you are facing north, alright, that is where you will be facing the low-rise apartments that are up to 8 stories. One thing to take note of when I was studying the site plan is to just be careful if you're looking at stacks 1, 2, 3, which are facing north, because right beside us there is going to be another high-rise residential plot with the same gross plot ratio of 4.2. So potentially this could be a high-rise private, and you just want to be careful because those will be facing towards, you know, the next project. So again, it really depends on how the next developer is going to be designing the blocks and the facings. So if you're looking for at this stacks, then perhaps you want to go low floor to mid floor just so you can get the pool view of Vela Bay. So this is the site plan itself. The basic amenities are all there: tennis court, swimming pool, clubhouse, and we have 3 side gates all around. I won't deep dive too much into this as because I think you can get this info quite readily available elsewhere. The sea view units actually starts from level 11 as per the developer. So this is where you also want to be, mindful of, if this is what you're really going to go for. And the great thing is that because of what I mentioned, the V-shaped angle, right? This is where they can actually promise in a way that 72% of the units in Vela Bay are sea facing. So yeah, that's a good majority of the residents here. Next, we touch upon whether the developer bought the land too expensive, because when this land was first closed and sold to Singhai, I think there was a big buzz about whether 1,388 PSF per plot ratio is too high. I think if we look at the number of bids, the confidence levels of these developers, when they actually place their bids for this land. So in total, they actually received 8 bids for this plot of land. And I think what's interesting is that the difference between the first 2 bidders is actually only 0.8%, which is very competitive bids that the government actually received for this plot of land. Okay, so now moving on to 5 reasons not to buy. Firstly, would be Vela Bay would be setting the highest PSF benchmark in the whole of OCR. The highest so far that we have seen in the new launch market would be 2008 PSF, and that is at Alta, which is at the Clementi site where, they have the very famous Nanhua Primary School. So that's that for Clementi. Secondly would be this car-like dilemma, as I call it. Reason being is because what I feel is that people who will be living here are after the lifestyle. Likely, I would say they are owning a car, if not multiple cars. So for this project to only have 50%, I feel it will have an impact when it hits the resale market. So yeah, that's just a point to take note. Thirdly would be a developing township. So you will be faced with upcoming constructions in the area, and it's inevitable because again you are taking advantage of being a first mover in this town. Fourth would be the unavoidable ECP, the expressway, so that will come with some noise and perhaps some dust, but I mean that is what it is to have a sea view. And lastly would be the URA's Long Island vision, where there could be a risk of future developments in front and potentially blocking your sea view. This one I would just put it as a last point, reason because it is still uncertain as of now. I'm not saying that, there will be high rise in front, but, this is just a potential risk. Okay, so now we talk about 5 reasons to buy into Vela Bay. So first being the rare sea views that you can get, which is rarely found in, many other projects in Singapore itself. And secondly, we talk about the first mover advantage, right? And thirdly, which is near to an MRT. So this is really the doorstep convenience that you can get just right below your block. And next, we're near to the future integrated transport hub, which we also shared about. And lastly, but most importantly, is we have a very clear exit strategy, with that being your HDB upgraders and your landed downgraders within the area. Now we dive into the respective floor plans. So the smallest at Vela Bay would be the 1+ study. So if we are looking at a range of 2008 to 3000 PSF, we are looking at the quantum of 1.35 to 1.45 million. And it has a nice study alcove near the foyer where you enter into the house. The 1+ study stack has a sea view. For seaside residences, remember this is not a harmonized project, so we are looking at a bigger 592 square feet. And for the resale transacted, this has already reached 1.255 up to 1.295 million. And I have chosen this layout because it has a similar study alcove, but it seems bigger than what we have at Vela Bay. Seaside Residence has another 1+ study at 560 square feet, but the study is not an alcove. In fact, it is behind the open kitchen. So it's not really a study space. And one thing about Seaside is that the 1-bedrooms are all suites. So what that means is that there is no bedroom wall separating the bedroom from the living area. And we have no 1-bedroom at Costa del Sol. So for the 2-bed 1-bath, there are 3 types of these unit types at Vela Bay. 2 out of 3 have sea view. 2-bed 1-bath, all are dumbbell and they are all of the same size. The only very slight difference at the foyer and the kitchen area only. Pricing wise, we are estimating it to be 1.65 to 1.77 million. For seaside residences, we are looking at 678 square feet at a quantum of 1.6 to 1.65 already transacted. For seaside residences, they don't have any dumbbell layouts or are the traditional kind of layouts, and with an open kitchen as well. There is again no 2-bed 1-bath at Costa del Sol because it's mainly for the bigger unit types. Okay, so we have a 2-bed 2-bath at Costa del Sol. So it is huge at 947 square feet. It doesn't come with any balconies as per all the Costa del Sol layouts. Transacted already at 1.68 million for only one transaction in the past 1 year. And if we look at Vela Bay, we have actually 4 types of 2-bed 2-baths. 3 out of 4 stacks actually have the sea view, and all are again dumbbell layouts. So the differences is for the 4 types is that type A and B are gallery kitchen at 689 square feet. Type C and D have an enclosable kitchen at 678 square feet. So the slight difference for C and D is a smaller living/dining area. So expecting for this 689 square feet at Vela Bay to be about 1.93 to 2.06 million. And what we are looking at in resale at Seaside Residence is already up to 2.148 million. And for them is again the traditional layouts, no dumbbell, and it has an enclosable kitchen for this type B2 layout. So for these 2-bedders, no windows in the bathroom or in the kitchen. Okay, so now we move on to the 3-bedders. So at Vela Bay, there are 6 types of 3-bedders. 3 out of 6 of this unit type have the home shelter. But one thing I realized from Pioneery's launch, the buyer's behavior, right, is that for the 3-bedder, it doesn't matter anymore if there isn't any home shelter. Because actually those, interestingly, were the ones that were sold first on launch day. And I really think this is down to because of the quantum. Like buyers would want to save that few $100,000s of dollars to forego the home shelter. Yeah, so that was very interesting find. So in this case, for Vela Bay, I'm also quite certain that, if the price gap is about few $100,000s, people will go for the smaller ones without the home shelter. Okay, so we have a mix of dumbbell and traditional for the 3-bedders. All are enclosable kitchen, so I think that's a great thing. The developer knows what they are doing, and they all have a 3-meter wide living room. Okay, and one thing to point out for Seaside and Costa del Sol is that not all the bedrooms will have a sea view, because we do see the bedrooms and the windows all at different parts, different facings of the house. Okay, for Seaside, it's been transacted 2.36 up to 2.58 million. One thing is the bedrooms, especially the master bedroom at Seaside, is very big, it's very huge. And Costa del Sol, again, is going to be the largest floor plate and the very efficient as well, without any balconies, transacted up to 2.5 million. Okay, moving on to the 4-bedder. So there are 3 types of 4-bedders at Vela Bay. One of it has the private lift, and all the 4-bedders have home shelter and a yard, and all are sea-facing units. The dry kitchen only comes comes in from the 4-bedder with a private lift, and it also has a nice 4-meter wide landscape living room for the one with the private lift. So for the Type A 4-bedder, we are estimating it to be 3.28 million up to 3.51. But one thing I see at Seaside is that it has a landscape living room for the Type D one, standing at 1,485 square feet. This is beautiful because you can see they have a very big, nice master bedroom. And I just love the landscape living room. And it also comes with a dry kitchen. There hasn't been any Type D1 transaction in the past 1 year. So what I've done is to base off a Type D2 PSF, estimating it if it hits the resale market, it will be about 3.77 million. So that's for Seaside. And then for Costa del Sol, it's transacted for the Type D, which is the closest that I could find in terms of the layout, up to 2.968 million. There was a 2.3 million, but that was for a lower floor, and I think it's an outlier transaction. I think what we can really see here is that for Vela Bay, we are looking at, again, more efficient floor plans because this is a harmonized project. We're looking at also smaller sizes on paper. Vela Bay, I feel, is perfect for your own stay comfort because it's very rare. It's a rare product. What you get here is the East Coast Park lifestyle, a sea-facing unit, doorstep to the MRT, and you get brand new amenities in this new township, while also being accessible to the mature areas amenities like your Marine Parade, your Bedok, and Tanah Merah, whatnot. However, from a pure investment perspective, and for a lower downside risk, you might also want to consider Tengah Garden Residences, which is also launching at the same time as Vela Bay, where a 2-bedder here at Vela Bay could potentially get you a 3-bedder over at Tengah Garden Residences. So for that, do stay tuned for my next video analysis on Tengah Garden Residences. One thing importantly is that if you are going for this project, just be careful of getting into the height of the high floor sea-facing units. Be very clear about your walkaway price. I think because the developer will definitely be loading the premium on the sea-facing units and the higher floors. So this is just something to be very mindful of, when you are entering this into the launch day, and just make sure that you have a peace of mind, when you are proceeding to select the unit. Yep, so if you find this useful, do help to like and share this, with your friends who are also looking into property planning. And if you need to speak to someone to see whether this might be suitable for your property portfolio, do feel free to reach out to me.